Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad, this is my channel Animal Orange, and this week in 3D metal model news. Honestly, there's not a whole lot new this week in 3D metal model news. I guess that shouldn't come as too much as of a surprise, as last week was full of a lot of little tidbits of information, and things coming soon, things coming up. So it only kind of makes sense that this week things are a bit quiet. There are no new models to talk about, no coming soon models to talk about this week, but I do want to open up with a couple of corrections from last week. Both of those corrections regarding the Peace Cool models that I talked about in last week's video. One of the Peace Cool models was an upcoming battleship. It appears I got the name incorrectly, and that's no surprise. I'm not the best at pronouncing names. But thanks to, again, I may pronounce this incorrectly, it's H-E-U-I-A-R space Ed. Aguar Ed. Suppose you can correct me on that if I got it wrong. I do apologize, but according to them, the correct pronunciation of the ship that is coming out is Congo. So the Congo battleship is the correct name. Another slight correction that I want to make is regard to the Princess Jasmine model that I had mentioned. They mentioned it being a music box, but I doubt it actually has any movement to it. Turns out I was incorrect and did not check on another tab. Thank you a little bit to CodeWookie for helping correct me on this, but it does have a music box in the kit that goes inside the base of this model that does allow the top to turn. So you're not building any of the mechanics according to the instructions that I've downloaded and looked at, but it does include an apparent music box. And also according to CodeWookie, who has made an attempt to translate the name of the song that's being played, it appears to be Beethoven für Elise. Again, I'm terrible with pronouncing names, but it translates literally, I guess, as Beethoven to Alice. But it's not always easy to translate that and get it quite correct, but it appears it is a Beethoven tune or musical note that it plays in the music box that comes with that kit. And while there is nothing new coming from Fascinations or no releases from Fascinations or Metal Earth this week, there are a few things that I wanted to comment on. Because I had the time and poked around on their website, I did notice some more retired models, and one of which I think I've talked about before, the Kennedy Center. I think I'd mentioned probably weeks, if not months ago, that it was on a list to be retired or retiring. It is now retired, according to the website. Basically, if you go in and look around, you will see that the Kennedy Center, the Sago Palm Tree, and the Sundial Bridge are now listed as retired, and that's unfortunate. I remember hearing about the Halo models being retired, the Mass Effects models being retired, and that was kind of sad. And it's sad to think that not just the Kennedy Center and the Sundial Bridge and the Palm Tree, it's sad to think that they're going to start retiring some of these older models. The Halo and Mass Effect models I have already purchased and built, and you can still find them in some places. The Kennedy Center I have built, but the Sundial and Sago Palm Tree I have not. And there's a lot of models to build, and I'm not so much anxious to build them as I am to at least buy them and have them, since they won't be available anymore. Maybe the Sago Palm Tree is not that most exciting model to have, but it's being retired, and now I kind of want it. And at the risk of beating a dead horse, I did want to mention, I know a lot of people were very excited about the Wheeljack model becoming available. And as of last week, I could only find it for sale on the crazytoys.co.uk website and on pre-order from Tri-M Specialty Products, but it looks like Wheeljack is now on the Crazy Toys AliExpress site, if that is where you would prefer to order it from. So it is slowly becoming more available across the board. But again, Wheeljack is now available, and all of us are trying to catch up before they announce the next awesome model. And that brings us to this week's question of the week, or actually last week's question of the week. I had asked in relation to the recent sort of, not announcement, but the inclusion of 4 or 5 mystery models, I think it was 5 mystery models, Star Wars models, in the upcoming or newest catalog. They had mentioned, basically have placeholders that these models are coming available, but not what they were. So I had asked the question, what, if any, Star Wars models are you hoping for or expecting, or are you tired of the Star Wars models? And of course, I got a few responses. From Shane Stribley, hi Brad, to answer this week's question, I think we might get a Darth Vader or Stormtrooper figure. Fingers crossed, cheers from down under. And that certainly would kind of make sense. You know, we've got Iron Man, and we've got a few other figures, some armor figures. It would be kind of neat to have a Darth Vader or a Stormtrooper figure. I'm sure they would be rather complicated and challenging models. There are definitely some people out there that would be up for the challenge, including myself. New K's 8346. Wish they would offer a Y-Wing and B-Wing. Do they take suggestions? And I have been saying for the longest time, as well as others, I'd love to have a Y-Wing, even though those kind of nacelles in the back would be a pain to shape. I'd love to have a Y-Wing and a B-Wing too. Why not? I'd love to have at least the list of fighters that were in the original Star Wars movie doing their attack run on the Death Star. I'd love to have each one of those models. Of course, I love ships, so pretty much any ship I'm going to be behind. Hey, let's make this into a model. James Bickert. Another great vid, Brad. Very informative. Thanks again for all you do. Not a big Star Wars fan, so I'll pass on this week's question. Take care. And I'd responded to that. Actually, you have answered this question, because in part of that question was, are you tired of the Star Wars models? Not to say that they're tired of it, but basically they're not interested in those particular models. And as popular as Star Wars is, as many people that are into Star Wars, there are those that are just not interested, and that's fine too. Richard Kroll says, as Star Wars models, I would like to see a couple of models of lightsabers. There were several different styles, and some of them were customized, like Luke's. They would lend themselves very easily to incorporating a lot of detail. And that is not the first time I've heard of the suggestion of lightsabers, and I agree. A decent sized lightsaber, possibly even an Iconics model, because you would not want something like that being too small, would be an awesome addition to the Metal Earth lineup. Walter J. Schuler, a lightsaber line would be awesome. Again, another comment on lightsabers. There are a lot of people out there that would love to see the lightsabers. Why aren't we doing this? Code Wookie, man, that was a long video, so much news. As for the question, I'd say Kylo's TIE Fighter from the video, the droids you pointed out, some new Walker variants, a new Resistance fighter we've never heard of, and another Millennium Falcon? Question mark. What I'm curious about is whether or not they will go full color with this next set of Star Wars models. And you know, honestly, that's something that didn't occur to me. With so many of the models coming out being in color now, is this next Star Wars lineup of models going to be in color like so many other things? Or are they going to do a color and silver mix like they've done with the Game of Thrones models? That's an interesting question. I'd like to see, I'm curious to see how that's going to turn out. So not only what models are we dealing with, but how much color is going to be included, and whether or not the Iconics Star Destroyer is going to be one of those 5. I guess not, having said that, because the ones they have listed in the catalog are all Metal Earth models. None of them are Iconics, but then again, I have seen before, not in a catalog, but online, where something was listed as a Metal Earth and later on turned into an Iconics. It's a wait and see game, honestly. But for this week's question of the week, it is a question that I wanted to elaborate more upon that was asked of me earlier this week from a CHLADICLI. Hi there, I was doing this model today and I have one small question. I saw you strictly follow the instructions with bending and twisting tabs. What do you prefer more? I'm always trying to use bending because then model looks better to me, and in the final I didn't have problems with tracks getting away from the hull. I believe this was a tank model, I forgot to make a note of that. I managed to even all the small exhaust, which was difficult, and twisting would have saved a lot of time, but in general I managed. I just don't believe twisting, because when I was doing Abrams, thanks to twisting a piece of the hull fall down. That is a good question, and in the past, in some of my other videos, I have made comments on how I tend to approach tabs. But with things like that, I always think it's good to review, because for one, things can change, and for another, there's a video that's been buried by plenty of other videos that I've made. So I do like to review some of these commonly asked questions every so often in my 3D metal, or I like to review them, period, every so often, and this is a good forum to do so, especially since someone asked. When it comes to twisting or folding tabs, in the beginning, yes, I pretty strictly followed what the instructions said to do. a lot of the times those instructions would tell you to do folded over tabs when twisting would be a lot easier because you needed to save room for another part. But as time went on, I found that that was not always the case. And there were times where I made the judgment call that yes, it would be better to fold this tab rather than twist it, or twisting would work better than folding in this scenario. And over time, the basic rule that I've come up with is folded tabs, I agree, do look better. And folded tabs are typically reserved for outer areas, the visible areas of a model. Twisted tabs, however, in my opinion, tend to be more secure and hold things down tighter and are less likely to come loose. Twisted tabs generally are reserved for inner areas where they're not visible so that they don't take away from the look of the model. That being said, there are situations where while it's a visible tab and folded over will look better, this tab needs to be secure and twisting is the option that I go with. There are situations where folding a tab is difficult to the point of possibly damaging the model or not securing the part properly, and I will twist instead, or twist and try to fold to try and hide it because I need it to be secure. So it really varies sometimes depending on the location and the needs of that part. Just like in construction, you have load supporting beams. In these models, you sometimes have parts that are just a small part that just needs to be held on, and it's not that big a deal, and a folded tab would work. But you have parts that basically add to the structural stability of the model, and maybe they should be twisted. It's really oftentimes a case-by-case basis, but generally visible tabs I like to fold if possible. Inside tabs I will often twist to make the model more secure, but there are exceptions to every rule. Hopefully that answers your question and elaborates a little farther. And I sometimes, when I build these models now, if I make a judgment call like that, I will oftentimes try to include it. Again, there have been situations where the instructions said to twist a tab, which honestly I think they shouldn't, because in an instance where this tab is sticking up on this part of the body, but you have another part that lays flat on top, a twisted tab is not going to work. The part's not going to lay properly. It's better to fold it. And there have been situations where the instructions say to twist a tab, but really you should fold that over to save room for the next part to add on. So that's an elaboration on that answer, and out there for anybody else who may have a similar question. I don't always follow what the instructions say, and then when you get into things like not P School, but MU, who don't really tell you, you have to decide for yourself. And that's one of the reasons, aside from the fact that MU models, or at least the transformer models, are very large, one of the reasons that I consider those more advanced models, because before you do an MU Transformers build, you should have a fairly good understanding of when to use what kind of fold or twist or connection. And that's it for this week's question of the week. There's one more thing I do want to add to the video, one more thing I do want to talk about. A lot, you'll notice a lot, I record the news videos and sometimes my opening and closing videos for my builds and reviews in this space with these two screens behind me. This is my local library's media lab, and I've been using that a lot lately. Thank you very much to the local library for providing this space. It's been very helpful during the move, as I'm still setting some things up and don't really have a background to record in front of, but it also is a quiet place for me to get away. Anyway, I bring that up because one of the things that the library does in their maker space is they have a program called Maker Mondays. And Maker Mondays are obviously scheduled on Mondays, but what happens is it's some sort of maker or learning event that changes from week to week. And I have taken part in a few of those as far as being a student or somebody learning. I've taken a class on Raspberry Pi, I've taken classes on photography, I've taken classes on drawing and many other things, but I wanted to do a Maker Monday of my own, and I have scheduled one for a while now, and that is coming up. I wanted to do a Maker Monday basically introducing people to Metal Earth models. And that is something that I've kind of spearheaded and wanted to give a shot and see how it works out. I've got it scheduled for next month. I have a date. I'm not going to mention it quite yet just in case some things change, but I have a date coming up in August where I'm going to hold a small class for anyone who's interested, and we're going to build some butterfly models, because I thought that was a great way to start. All the instructions for the butterflies are the same. I can bring in an array of butterflies so everybody can pick the one that appeals to them. We can all go together and construct this rather simple model with fairly simple tools and basically introduce people to the world of 3D metal models and metal earth models. Very excited about that. I'm going to try and record some of that class to see how it goes and share it with everyone. I do want to thank Metal Earth for providing the models for me to bring to this class, and I'm rather hoping, I know there's one other individual, don't want to mention names, not that they would mind, but there's one other person that's I've got who's thinking of doing a similar thing at their library, and if this goes well, I'd like to encourage others to do the same. This is a wonderful hobby that we have. People who build these models on the Metal Earth subreddit and so forth, and even in some of the Facebook groups, they're wonderful people, and it's a wonderful community, and building these models is a wonderful and fun challenge with a beautiful thing to display, and I want to share it with others. I thought I would mention that. That's something coming up, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it'll be very exciting, and I'd like to see what comes of it. I'll leave it at that. As always, thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support this channel and all the things that I do. And thank you for watching. If you enjoy these videos, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. There's links at the very end of this video. Or if you just want to give a tip in the description down below, there's a link to Ko-Fi where you can just leave a tip for any video that you'd like. As always, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. And keep on keeping on.